Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Well, thank you for joining us again this beautiful Monday morning. It's Monday, the 22nd of May, 2023. And I hope that you enjoyed your weekend, because I did. Well, you know that this is the Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. My name is TEMITOPE Ajijalaluola. Thank you for joining us. You know, you can always follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Western Spring Television. And on YouTube, you can live stream the show at Western Spring Television still. And you can always watch us on Star Times, the DTT platform, channel 190. Thank you for joining us this morning. And today is 22nd May, like I said, and it's about 7 days, yes, exactly a week today, to the inauguration of the president-elect and the new administration. Well, I'm not the master of countdowns. Emmanuel is here, the master of countdowns. It's been a while. Emmanuel, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm very well. It's good to be back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to be in this chair again on Morning Spring, Western Spring Television. It's been a while, like you said, been away for some reasons, but thank God for life. Thank God for everything. And of course, it's 7 days before the inauguration of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Power will change hands. We expect to see a new president, a new cabinet. Yes, of course, in the next coming month, we expect to see if all of these campaign promises that brought the president-elect to office will be fulfilled. But it's good to be back on the show. Good to start your day with you and with us, and to make the most of our days.
Well, I'm hoping that all that he brought, because he brought a bag of goodies. I hope that
I really don't know what you're talking about.
Well, we'll be bringing you the newspapers after this short break. To stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the show. We'll begin with the Punch newspaper as usual for you this morning. That's where we start our newspaper review. Monday, May 22nd, 2023. The banner headline is a little bit different from all the political back and forth going on. Dangote refinery opens today. Eyes crude oil from 3 continents, as on page 27. And the writers say Buhari, Tinubu, African leaders, others to attend launching refinery to meet daily fuel consumption, create 100,000 jobs. You can see some pictures there of the Dangote refinery and petrochemical facility. Also a picture of the chairman of the group there, Dangote, and of course Chairman Gerego Power Plant, Femi Otedola. Some very, very good developments. Some would say to ease the pressure on our own moribund refineries. Yes. Let's see if it will, apart from creating jobs, ease the whole fuel scarcity, meet our daily quota of consumption.
Of course, I think that has already been mentioned. It's going to meet that. I mean, consumers are going to get enough. But then what I'm concerned about is the price. The price may, really take a toll on Nigerians. And then, but for the fact that we'll have to stay on long queues, I think that's going to reduce with time. And then the fact that it's also going to create jobs is a positive move. It's a positive one. But the pricing of the fuel is the issue.
Well, wait to see how that plays out in the coming days after the inauguration, the launching. The inauguration is becoming a recurrent word now. Yes. So at the bottom strip of the paper, account for $460 million CCTV loan court orders the federal government. That's on page 42. I was going through that story. Was a suit instituted by the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the court ruled that there needs to be an account for the amount that loan was obtained for the CCTV project. It was rumored that sometime that the project failed. The CCTVs are not working in Abuja, and we need to know where the money was spent on, or what the money was spent on. So the court is asking the federal government, but President Buhari is leaving office.
He is. Well, I think that this administration is going to have to, if they are instituting this particular suit, they're going to institute even more, because we can see several things that money are being taken for right now. Loans, the money has been, especially the census loan and all, it's been suspended. And then the money, where is it?
The palliative loan.
Palliative loan, yes, sorry. The palliative loan. And so we don't know what's going to happen to that money. So the incoming administration, is going to have a lot to ask, when they get there.
The question now is, will they ask?
Will they ask? That's the question. Yes.
Well, the red story is NDLEA arrests Baron in Lagos hotel over 567 million naira seized drugs. The NDLEA has been busting some of these criminals, alleged criminals, if you like. Yesterday, I saw the videos. They use sniffer dogs to, very beautiful apartment in Lagos, and then you saw the meth and all of the drugs that were there, and then you begin to wonder, we are grappling with a drug pandemic amongst our youth, or epidemic, if you like. These people, young people, secondary school students, graduates, undergraduates, are seriously abusing drugs, and then these drugs were outbound, they were going to leave the shores of the country, but it still does not detract from the fact that it was within the shores of Nigeria. Some of those drugs may have been moved in.
Yes, you made a very valid point. The problem is, what was the source of the drugs? Where are they being? So is it that we are growing now and then we are manufacturing right here?
Or is Nigeria a passage?
Exactly, a passage route, yes. And so NDLEA needs to not just arrest these people, but also try to track down where it is these drugs are coming from, because it's becoming a pandemic, like you said. Since the beginning of the year, NDLEA has been getting lots of, and I've been several of them, and it needs to be pointed out where it is they're getting these things from.
Well, kudos to the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi, the spokesperson of the NDLEA. Almost every Sunday you get update from the agency about what arrests have been made and what busts have been made. Away from that story, don't judge me based on performance, as Minister says Akpabio. Akpabio has been endorsed by the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, for the position of Senate President. And of course, former governor of Akwa Ibom, former minister of Niger Delta Affairs, is saying that we shouldn't judge him. Nigerians should not judge his performance, should not judge him based on his performance as minister. And the question is, if you're not going to be judged on your antecedent, on what you've done,
that's a very absurd thing
should we judge you on what you're yet to do?
Well, it was specific. Don't judge him by his performance as minister,
that's the most,
not as a past governor,
or not as even a senator.
Yes, so you could use those ones to judge him. But then we wonder what changed as a minister. What were the factors that were against you as minister that didn't make you prefer? Okay, so we haven't even said anything, and he is here
saying that
he just came out like he did not perform.
It might be an admission of the fact that he performed woefully as a minister. I don't know if that's what he's saying.
Exactly, that may be what he's saying. So don't judge him based on that performance, or maybe he overperformed and he doesn't want you to to say that he may not be fit for whatever else is coming, and so well, that's from Akpabio, but I think on all grounds, it's a very absurd thing to say.
Well, very absurd things to say. We should be judging politicians based on the antecedents.
Yes.
Across board, not just one particular position that they've had. But above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper today, page 2, Presidential Poll Tribunal. Parties disagree has cut rules on live broadcast today. But the update on that story is that there's been a ban. You get to see that later in the trends. There's been a ban on electronic gadgets. You can't go into the court with your phones and other recording devices. And then the other case on live broadcast will be ruled on today. But people are saying that if you banned electronic gadgets, how would you want to rule on live broadcast?
I think that if there's going to be live broadcast, it's going to be with people who have a license who have been licensed to cover and broadcast this. and then having individuals having it in their own domain may not be what the court is going to accept. So it's important. We've seen several others that are not even going to be broadcast, and then the court will rule that there should be no coverage of such whatsoever. So if the court is going to rule in favor, which we don't know well, the case is before them already. We can't really dwell on it much, but then I think that those who are going to be allowed to cover are going to be licensed, people.
All right, licensed people. The covered story there is BUHARI, yes, the power sector still a quagmire. The administration is winding down. In fact, there have been reports that all handover notes are being given down. Everything has been prepared for a smooth transition, as it has been going on, for weeks now. Yeah. And there's been spotlight on the BUHARI years across all board. That's what we'll be doing on the show today, the interview segment too.
Yes, and on the face of the papers, especially the Guardian has been doing a lot on that. And I'm expecting to see more today. We're expecting to see more today. Yeah,
expecting to see more. And Nigerians too can have their say. You can go over to our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just tag us at Western Spring Television. Tell us what you think about the BUHARI years, where you think he has performed properly or where you think he has underperformed. The social media handles will be shown on your screen shortly, so you can join the conversation. And also, you can follow us live on YouTube and drop your comments there. We'll take them for you. But that's all on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Well, to the Guardian newspaper, high expectations as Dangote breaks NNPC's monopoly, shrinks EU supply to Africa. And that's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, high expectations really on the Dangote refinery, and not just for Nigeria, but for other countries, seen as about 7, African or 7 other heads of state, 7 other presidents will be joining in the opening of that refinery. So it means that Africa, this particular refinery has a lot of importance to not just Nigeria, but beyond the shores of the country. And lots of hopes are hinged on that. It has to do well. It really does have to especially, improve the plights of the people as to, the consumption. Yes.
The way the Guardian puts it, saying it breaks the NNPC's monopoly. Well, let's see if it really will break it, or if the law has been said about public enterprises and private enterprises, but this is a private venture, and it's expected that because this person is personally involved and invested in it, he wants the best for his own, something. Then I hope that it's going to ease a lot of things. But like you said, now there's the problem of the price and all of that. Let's just have faith,
as a business owner. The first reason for establishing anything is to make maximum profit. And then, I also hope that these things have been spelled out directly and well documented, so as to avoid future disagreements. But then below that, May 29, security, economy, restructuring, Southeast peace, top lists of demand from Tinubu. Security, economy, restructuring, Southeast peace, top lists of demand from Tinubu. Well, let's hope that the president-elect, once inaugurated, could make the best of all of these and give people what exactly they've been expecting for about 8 years now, that has really not really materialized. But that's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Higher mortgage rates dampen real estate affordability and investment, and that's on page 5. You can check the analysis of that there. It says higher mortgage rates dampen real estate affordability and investments. And with the high rates now, with the high mortgage rates, come very, very low quality buildings. And we just hope that we can go.
Yes. I've had reason to see some real estate, pieces, let me put it that way, recently, and I just kept shouting, oh wow, because you see something as small as a kiosk priced really high, and it's the same thing for the other residential buildings, same thing for shops and all of that.
Yes.
And it's you begin to wonder, where do you want people to live? Who are you building for? If you're building real estate, you have to have a target audience. The majority of the audience in the market, rather, the majority of the market people that you're targeting cannot afford what you're building. And so it defeats the purpose of building it in the first place. So I hope that affordable housing will also top the list of the incoming administration. I don't know how it's going to do it, if it's by special intervention, if it's by regulating the industry. There has to be something done to make housing affordable for people.
Really. Well, the cost of things, especially cement and every other thing, sand and all that, is really, really very high. And people always want to cut corners, to get subsidized rates, and then, or to just, limit the usage of some of those things. They cut down the quantity of some of the things they're supposed to use, and past standard, and then it goes that. But like you said, we hope that the incoming administration can look into this area. It's become a menace, really, because people have been having building collapses and all of that. It's really been very, very sad. But on page 27, 5,000 distressed residential office properties flood real estate market.
And that's what you were just saying about people cutting corners down.
Yes,
Distressed
5,000
properties.
Imagine that.
People buy that. The next couple of years, collapse happens, and there's a problem.
Yes. And we see videos here and there of people. There was a particular video where we saw that particular building, being waved, and then eventually it collapsed. Like, people could see it from afar that this was going to collapse. And so that's really bad. Imagine if people were there, if it was, if a finished, project, and people were inside that, it could have become a very, very terrible situation. And so people need to be very mindful. And it's not just buildings. You see people, vendors now, people just want to make sales, and they sell different things to people. Have you seen that? Have you noticed that food poisoning is a bit on the rise?
Yes, it's on the rise.
Yes, people are just, they just want to sell. They don't care what happens to whomever is going to get those things from them. They just sell things, and you end up in the hospital. At the detriment
of the lives of people. But we hope that all of these things will stop.
Yes.
It speaks to the lack of empathy and lack of humanity.
And the desperation people have been pushed
really desperation, because if you have people at the back of your mind, that you're not, most of them can't even use what they sell. They can't patronize themselves because they know what it is.
The quality they're putting out there.
So imagine all of these distressed residential and office properties in the real estate market. Some unsuspecting persons will see them at cheap prices, going for them buy, and then there's a big problem in the nearest future.
Well, on page 7, Babalola urges Tinubu to lobby for debt relief. I think that this is a very, very timely and good advice, really, because our debt profile is really high, and we need some sort of intervention, even if it's not going to be all. We need really.
So the question is, do we deserve debt relief? Will we get it? I mean, there are so many questions around debt and debt relief.
When you seek mercy, it's not about you being deserving
of it.
You just need the mercy.
But this is it. This is it. The divine mercy.
What I don't know is, at what cost would that be to Nigeria and Nigerians? When they give you debt relief, what else are they taking in return? So those are the things.
Well, it's a relief, and so I don't expect anything in return.
Okay. All right. On page 4, Okoleabo retires as acting AGF on May 28th. Well, that's just, a day before the inauguration. That's on page 4 of The Guardian. And on page 3, global disinformation experts launch international panel on information environment. That is on page 3 of The Guardian. And that's the much we have on The Guardian newspaper.
Well, let's move on from The Guardian to the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust online paper this morning. The banner story, banner headline there says 6 top sectors awaiting Tinubu's magic wand. Experts advocate new security architecture. Think tank, power grid crashes dog energy sector. And 77 trillion naira debt amid rising inflation. The 6 top sectors are awaiting is, in quotes, magic wand. Will he be able to just wake up in the morning, wave the wand, and everything is gone? Or would there be a systematic approach to some of these issues that have been raised? Security is a problem. The power grid crashing every now and then. I mean, the electricity, people now are delving into generating their own electricity using solar panels and inverters at a very expensive, cost and all that. And it speaks to the fact that people don't expect things to change.
Yes, and people really expect very less from the government these days. Imagine the basic things that the government is supposed to afford you, shelter, security, and power. You see that people are the ones generating this themselves. People build houses themselves. They get water themselves. I mean, they have to provide water for themselves. And then even electricity, those that are not, people are really moving from generators now to inverters and the solar energy. And really, so you can see that people are really not expecting much from the government anymore. As a matter of fact, they may not even be expecting anything. It's just an administration comes and goes, for them.
Well, let's see how. I'm more of a spectator in Nigeria's theater.
That's what many people have become.
Yes, because you talk and you talk and you talk. You talk for many months, for many weeks, and it's just talk. Those who should do the things know what to do, and if they decide not to do it, you really can't beat them. You can't block them. You can't force them. They have to exercise the political will to do it. So at the bottom, street bandits kill 15 farmers in Kaduna, Benue. It's really worsening now. Security every now and then. 115 people in Plateau State recently.
Yeah.
These are not tubers of yam. They are people, human beings. I mean, I assume that 115 people will fill up the studio. Imagine all of them dead. 15 farmers dead in Kaduna, Benue. At the bottom strip there, how vigilantes killed 11 herders, women, children in Oyo, as on page 6. So you see that all of these things, when you think about them, you realize, again, coming from the Buhari administration to the Tinubu administration, you see that Asiwaju's administration has its plates full already. There's a lot to tackle, and it remains to be seen if he will exercise that political will, that strength of character to bring all of this to fruition, because much damage has been done. There's a lot of aggrieved people across the country. There's a lot of angry people across the country. First, you need to assuage them. You need to, pet them, calm them down. And there are those who have fears that you need to allay. So all of these things, it's really dangerous for us.
Yes,
we're at a dangerous point.
There are several other thousands and millions that are hungry, and because they're idle, they don't have something to do. They find something for themselves, and most likely, these things are not things that should be, seen publicly, and so they're very bad things. And we just hope that he can mend, fences where necessary, and then bring that much needed unity and the oneness that has always been preached in Nigeria to the hearts of people.
Well, so to some cheering stories now. Resident doctor suspends strike, resume work today. On page 45, they've been, angry at the government not being able to fulfill, or deliberately, according to them, not fulfilling, what's it called now? It promises. It promises.
Yes, and for the fact that their liaison officer, the labor minister, has not really been encouraging to say the least. So.
All right, still on the bottom strip, over 70% of Nigerian foods rejected abroad. That's coming from NAFDAC, saying most of the food items we export out of the country are rejected. Well, you can get more on that story on page 5 of the Daily Trust online newspaper. Above the banner headline, Daura plans big for Buhari's homecoming. Of course, their son is coming back after the 8 years.
Yes, we hope that all of this, in Nigeria, or I should say Africa generally, when there's a celebration, especially even birthdays or celebration of life, at funerals, you see people, saying the things that people want to hear.
Yes.
That there's no proper assessment of how good or bad you've been.
How much you failed.
Yes, how much you've failed, or how much you've been able to succeed at whatever it is that's been placed in your care. And this is going to be one of such celebrations. I'm not seeing any change, So that's why they're planning big for his homecoming. It's not going to be a homecoming where you say, we expected more from you, and this is what you were able to achieve, and we were quite disappointed, or we have been, very, very, pleased with what you've given. No, I'm not saying that here. It's just going to be celebrations, more
eulogies.
Yes, waste of resources too. You eat.
Oh, well, you see it as a waste of resources.
Well, yes.
Well, it's really just to celebrate. It's not been easy. 8 years, your son been president.
Wow, it's not been easy on Nigerian side.
It's hard to be a president.
15 people were just killed, and some other people, you were killed, including children, women too. So it's not really been easy in Nigeria. And I'm still having a problem with the hardship allowance thing. I don't know. I don't know if the president, governors, and the vice should be the one taking that hardship allowance. If it's not
should
Nigerians.
Be for the people. The people should take the hardship. I was following the show with you and Tunde talking about hardship allowance. I was like, we the ordinary people need their hardship. We're going through hardship, a lot of hardship here. And on page 27, Nigeria imported 1.5 trillion raw sugar in 6 years. Another worrisome statistics in talking about importing almost all the things that we eat. And on page 42, something that has really been in the news, MSSN petitions federal government over lewd sexual content in school textbooks. This is a conversation that needs to be had. Some schools, someone complained to me sometime last year, I think, I can't remember now, about some content. It was really sexual. Really? And it was for primary school students. I don't know how the printer or whoever the publisher mixed it up, and some of these things got to the children. It's a conversation that's been had in Western countries. Talking about infusing the queer community into school books. Yes. But now we're having it in Nigeria. Some textbooks, I've seen some of them. I've seen some of these complaints, and these petitions are really valid. I hope that the federal government, through the Ministry of Education, looks into it.
Well, I don't know what the Ministry of Education really is doing, because there was a time they were regulating the syllabus and textbooks that people use. But I also know that some private schools also go and liaise with these publishers themselves. But then the question is, at the time, they used to have the teachers themselves go through these textbooks before they're either approved or taken off the list. And so what happened? Is it that there is no proper monitoring again, or people are just leaking away and allowing that? I don't think that should find its way into our society.
Yes, that's the question. Yeah. I taught primary and secondary school for a while, and the first thing we do when we get textbooks, regardless of what subject you were teaching, was to go through them from cover to cover.
Yes.
Because you needed to be sure that it was the kind of content that you would be dishing out.
And it meets standards.
So these days, if if parents are the story I shared earlier was sent to me by a parent of the child who got the textbook, and if it was parents who are discovering these things instead of the teachers, then there's a big problem. If the child could have taken that textbook home, what happens if the child stays with the grandmother, for instance? A grandmother who doesn't have time to go through the textbooks,
or who isn't even educated,
or doesn't even has no inkling was in the book. What happens? The child internalizes all of those messages, and then there's a big problem, going forward. So the federal government really needs to step up.
Really, it's a matter of urgency. It needs not be allowed in the school environment at all. I mean, I was about to, place an argument about the fact that we really need to educate people along sexual lines. But then there are some contents that are not supposed to be. Yeah, and especially at primary school level, I don't see why there should be things like that. I mean, it should be treated as a very, very urgent issue. That's on page 42 of the Daily Trust newspaper.
Yes, and that's all we have there. It's to remember that there are still 45 schoolgirls of 4 schoolgirls of FGC Benin spent 706 days in captivity, and 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, who has spent 682 days, is still Leah Sharibo there in captivity, and other kidnapped victims. We hope that they are reunited with their families in due course. That's all on the Daily Trust this morning.
Well, Nation newspaper, Shatima Tinubu will run an all-inclusive administration. That's coming from Shatima, and it says why Southeast should support incoming government by Umahi. Well, that's on the face of the Nation newspaper this morning. Kindly read that to get more on that story. And just above that, on page 10, UK to ban foreign students from relocating with families. I mean, I was discussing this yesterday. I was, really, it was very, worrisome or disturbing when you think about it, that you're going to school and it's just like maybe going to school in Nigeria here. You have to relocate your families. You have to go with your family. I mean, maybe father, mother, or a younger one, or brother.
Well, I read the advisory or whatever it was that the UK put out by the Sun, and I kind of saw reasons with them. If I'm going to school, if I'm going to do my master's in a UK university, it will be unfair to take my wife and kids there, because I'm going there as a student. They are not going as students. They are going as dependents. They will have to get jobs. If they can't get the necessary document, it means they will be at home. If they fall sick, they have to be treated, putting pressure on an already pressed system, But some people argue that the UK needs the revenue and all of that, but it's not just about revenue, honestly. It's about, if you have a state, for instance, that should cater, that's what's happening with Lagos State. You have a state that should cater to, say, 10,000 people. You make provisions for 5,000 students a year, that's 15,000. Those 5,000 students, it's not just Nigerian students, actually. It's international students, people from India, people from every other part of the world. And then you come with 5-6 people. Who takes care of those people?
You see, that's the point. Your immediate family shouldn't be the problem here. But if they are now posing a problem to the UK government, then there's a problem. I mean, why would you go to school for years and you leave your wife and kids, somewhere else? No, I think that's too.
No. Well, I saw reasons.
I have a problem with relocating some members of your extended family.
But even your immediate family, what we're saying is you're not relocating to start a new life.
No.
You're relocating to educate yourself,
but
to do your master's. By the way, this is just for masters students. It doesn't affect PhD students,
Imagine, if you want to have your master's in the UK, that's going to take you how many years roughly?
I know, just 1 year out there.
Just 1 year, and you'll be away from your wife and
That's why you should do it before getting married. Let's move on.
Okay. All right. Well, just below the
And because I'm not married, I can't do it. I can't.
Yes, of course, you cannot relate. I know.
What did you say?
You can't. You can't relate to that.
No problem.
Well, Buhari, 5 African presidents to inaugurate Dangote refinery, and it was talking about the Dangote refinery that will be opened today. And above the nameplate, explain your source of wealth, El Rufai tells predecessors, and that's on page 8. Well, I was talking with Femi the other day, whatever it is that you're doing today, just know that one day you would also be in their shoes.
Position.
And so El Rufai is going to be a past governor in, a couple of, in about a week.
It becomes easy if your
party is there.
Yes.
Don't always bank on that. Don't. Well, on page 5, interest rate likely to go up again as MPC mates. And then on page 8, sack fever grips aviation workers after FAN shakeup. And page 10, Afe Babalala urges incoming government to seek debt forgiveness. We also talked about that. And just below the bottom strip of the paper, why President-elect met with Kwankwaso by Jibrin. And to the last 2 stories there, terrorists take over Kenji National Park and woman he held with gun.
That's some insecurity there.
Sad stories. But those are the stories we have on the Nation newspaper.
And those are the papers we have for you this morning. We'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll bring you our guests to discuss the Buhari years. What has been left undone, how far has it gone, and where could it have done better? Stay with us.
Damosi Adegoke Adelabu was a prominent figure in Ibadan politics and Western region before Nigeria's independence. He was a key founder of the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, a political party that held lofty the torch of liberty for the 2 West African countries. He carved a niche for himself as a wordsmith and a creative speaker. The nickname Kwenkelemens was a natively corrupted version of peculiar mess, his bombastic English language style often used to score proceedings at the parliament. The author of Africa in Ebullition, a handbook of freedom for Nigerian nationalists, was Nigeria's Federal Minister of Natural Resources and Social Services between 1955 and 1956. He died in an auto crash on the 25th March 1958 at the age of 42. Western Spring Television identifies the name Adolf Hitler exudes a gale of bile from millions of people who were victims of his autocratic rule and love, from fanatical supporters of his imperial aggression. Born April 20, 1889, at a small Austrian town sandwiched between Austro-German frontier, Adolf Hitler spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Upper Austria. As a very prominent stakeholder in the horrific events of conflicts in Europe, Adolf Hitler could simply go off as the sole mover of the Second World War. 40 million Jews were murdered in the gas chambers of various Nazi camps on the orders of Adolf Hitler. Thousands of Adolf Hitlers still live in Germany today, but the majority of them are elderly and were named before the end of the Second World War. As the name pales into vanishing rarity, 13 children according to official records were named Adolf Hitler between 2006 and 2013. Western Spring Television identifies Adolf Hitler as a major character in history. Ahmadu Bello, a Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness in participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in Northern.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, where we bring you engaging conversations, try to make sense of things happening around you in the socio-political, socio-economic, and even socio-cultural spheres of our existence as Nigerians. This morning, we're joined in the studio by two erudite gentlemen. First, by Comrade Larry Fadausi, who is the Southwest Zonal Coordinator for Big Tent and Public Affairs Analyst, Show Coordinator for Nigeria Life Matters. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
We're joined by Ambassador Adewale Adewumi, a pastor, Mount Olives Ministry, New Sema Beach, Florida, journalist and former publisher.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Glad to be here.
All right. So, gentlemen, I'll start with Comrade now. 8 years, President Buhari is leaving office. Where does it stand in your book, looking at all the democratically elected presidents we've had?
Oh, well, in my books, you said, so the first thing I discovered was that at some point we all thought we were on the same page, and that was true. But we're not reading the same book. And that's the sad part of it. He had his agenda, he had his mission. You see, but when politicians, for instance, there was an issue when they were campaigning. They said 5,000 naira for every youth every month or something like that. And President Buhari said, well, he was in the euphoria of campaign, that he was not the one that promised that it was probably, I think it was a Vice President Osinbajo that, and he disowned that as, no, that's not part of my policy. So it means he had a book, same cover, but the pages were not the same. Because he pursued his agenda religiously, to the letter. And these are not hidden facts to people who understood it. Now, it was in Nigeria here that we all saw a sitting governor telling us that a Fulani is a citizen of the world, and that a Fulani anywhere can claim to be a Nigerian. We all saw that it was on channels. So as a media person, I'm making reference to what was in public space. So there was an agenda, and the way he pursued that agenda, to those people, he has not failed them. But to most of us, we think this person did not follow. In 2015, there was the campaign at the Dokia Masimeka Stadium, where he spoke about corruption, he spoke about security, and a host of other things. But look, from then till now, Inflation was single digit before Jonathan left. I mean, between 7%, 8%, thereabout. Immediately Buhari came, he moved to 9%. And thereafter, it kept going that way till it got to have as far as 18%. Job creation was part of the promises. So when you look at those issues and you consider policies like the waterways, the pursuit of that waterways agenda was strong because it was part of his program. The Ruga, so all of those policies were part of what people thought. In 1984, Buhari administration closed the borders. In 2021, 2020 or thereabout, they did the same thing again. And service chiefs, people said, oh, insecurity is so much, sack your service chief, sack your service chiefs. He did and made them ambassadors. People talk about nepotism. Well, the Buratai became the ambassador in the Republic of Benin. Sadiq Abubakar became ambassador, I think, in Chad. The other northerner became ambassador in Niger. And they put Olonishakin in Cameroon and the Igbo guy in Ghana. Do you understand the politics of that posting itself? So it was more of a nepotistic regime, such that the agitations of people to actually exit Nigeria became more rife in his administration.
So we'll come back to the exit of people and corruption, but let me ask Ambassador Adewumi now. President Buhari came into power on the back of strong promises as an army general who had fought wars, who had received many trainings, and was going to decimate, in his word now, the Boko Haram terrorists. But under his watch, there have been, in the past few weeks, hundreds of people have been slaughtered. Most worrisome in the northern part of the country where he's from. What sense do you make of President Buhari's fight against insecurity as promised by him?
Well, thank you. We all, in 2015, when Mr. General Buhari was presented, we believed those who presented him. We all had high hopes that when he comes in, based on his antecedents, that he will perform and things will change, and we looked up to him as the so-called savior to save Nigeria from the quagmire that it seemed to be in at that time. But we were disappointed, let me say that. Disappointed. Nigerians were disappointed. Even those who were on his side, those who were who promoted him, subliminally began to say things that to articulate their disappointment in Mr. Buhari. He has done a lot of things in infrastructure and all of that, but when it comes to democracy itself, he said when he was campaigning that he was a born-again Democrat. But a few things, his appointments, his pronouncements, even the executive orders, all of that, did not actually point toward a man who was a true Democrat. And everybody will be saying things, and he said he hoped that history will be kind to him. Well, when you look at the infrastructure achievements and all the things that is listed as his achievement, you will say he has done something, but the people in Benue State will not say that he has done anything. The people in Benue, where they just buried over 125, they just buried another 10 the other day. They have been burying their own people. They were being attacked by armed Fulani herdsmen, according to reports, but those people will not write his history very well at all. He has not, he has performed, let's not say, he has passed executive order, electoral act, and all the so many other acts that were passed under him. We might say we give him credit for it, but when it comes to the life of the average Nigerian, the average man, the average Nigerian cannot say that things are better under Buhari than it was under Jonathan or the president before him. So he has not actually impressed Nigerians. International leaders, world leaders look at him based on his integrity mantra that, oh, this is a man of integrity. You saw even Donald Trump, as wild as he was during presidency, welcomed Mr. Buhari to the White House based on all these antecedents that is being spoken about him. I was a soldier at the 2nd Infantry Division in Ibadan when Mr. Buhari was there, and I know what he did. His performance was very good. I also and my colleagues also campaigned for him. But then he came into office and he looked like a man who was not aware. He was disconnected from the feelings of the average person. He was disconnected from the things going on the streets. And we believe, or we were led to believe that does this man actually know what's happening? Or does he just sign papers brought, or folders and files brought before him? Does he take time to read them? Is he aware of the details of what he is signing? Because we see some of the things that he endorsed that later became a disaster, as has been articulated just now. He closed the border like he did before. He closed the border, and then the price of commodities went so sky high. Nigerians have all been on an appetite of imported rice because the locally produced rice was not enough. Locally produced rice were not clean, not pure enough. They were sandy. So now, when he closed the border, everybody began to say they want imported rice, and the price went sky high. The Congo, a milk cup of rice that if an average person could have afford before that, all of a sudden the price went sky high. So all these things, when you put it together, history will not write the history of Mr. Buhari, write it well. We are journalists. We are the ones who are writing history. We have a responsibility. We have a duty. But when we want to write the history, we will look at what has been done or has been achieved. And I'm telling you that based on what we monitor and what we know on the streets, history will not be kind to Mr. Buhari.
All right, so let me get your thoughts on something before I get back to the comrade. The Open Doors World Watch List in 2023, that's this year, on Tuesday, January 17th, released a statistic according to the International Center for Investigative Reporting, and said that Nigeria accounted for 89% of Christians that were martyred worldwide. That was between October 1st, 2021 and September 30, 2022. Now, as a retired soldier, the fight against insecurity took a religious and ethnic dimension.
Yes.
Do you think the president saw all of this and wasn't interested, or was it just his subordinate who could not follow his orders?
The president saw it. The president was aware of it. The president knew about it, but the president had an ethnic and religious commitment to unknown groups or individuals or cartel, we don't know. But based on what he has done, we cannot just paint his religion as bad. In fact, his religion is not bad. But he himself, being so committed to people who carry the same religious affiliation as he, people who are from his ethnic background, he seemed to be so biased toward them that insecurity became a problem. It's still a problem. During the few months when the election campaign, this past election, it seemed to go down because of the Naira exchange. Naira redesign. But then as soon as the election was over, as soon as we finished March 18 election, they began to kidnap again. They began to do something again. How many times has the president come out publicly to condemn those things? He has done it once, twice, maybe a few times, but how many times has he said anything directly about the killings in Benue State? Governor Otram left the party, left the APC party because they were killing his people, and he could not be in the same party with the man who said nothing and did nothing about it. So all these things, insecurity will not be written well about Mr. Buhari. Economy is another one. We've been talking about that. Corruption is another one. Somebody, I've never been to Daura in Katsina State, but somebody said, I read about 2 years ago, said a vulcanizer in Daura has become a multi-millionaire because he was given contract that he never supplied anything. Those are allegations. But everybody who has anything to say, or those who have been through Katsina State, especially Daura, you know the University of Transportation is located in Daura. I don't blame him. If you make me president, I will have a university of something in Oshobo as well. So, but a lot of things that have been brought to Daura were not there. And how many people was the population of Daura? So those things are the things that cast a doubt in people's mind. That does Mr. Buhari know about corruption going on around him? What about the AGF? Okay.
Accountant, yes. So I was going to ask that question now about talking about corruption. President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. It wasn't his administration that the head of the anti-graft agency was accused of corruption. Was removed from office. The current occupant of that office has been accused of demanding $2 million bribe by a sitting governor. The Accountant General of the Federation, 80 billion naira, the people in the House of Representatives and the Senate, all of the committees, you know, the drama that we've seen over the years, over the past 8 years. The drive against corruption, everybody, when it was coming to power, people said the war against indiscipline, you know, all of these things, somehow you look at Buhari and say he was supposed to kill corruption, not even bring it to the minimum. What's your assessment of his performance there?
The whole thing about this administration, without being immodest, is nepotism. 2 legs good, 4 legs bad. It's Animal Farm. So if you belong to me, you can't be wrong. Even the chairman of APC at one time, Adams Oshiomhole, said if you join our party, your sins are forgiven. And we saw a lot of that. A lot of governors who were accused of corruption by EFCC suddenly let off the hook. As a matter of fact, Silva, that they seized properties from, all those properties were released to him again. And so it became like, we protect you, whatever crime you commit, by way of corruption. Corruption has never been this bad in the history of this country. And historians are writing it. And you see, it is when people leave, I mean, how do you explain it? The Accountant General of Nigeria said ASU was irresponsible and unrealistic for requesting for, I think, 80 billion so that they can open the universities after a lockdown of universities for 8 months. And those universities are public universities where the children of the common man could leverage on education to rise in society. And they closed them up. And the self-same person was accused singularly of stealing 109 billion. 109 billion naira. Not only accused, he returned about 30 billion. And the guy went home to stay with his family. He was still living with his family. How do you now explain that kind of corruption in a government that said it was there to fight corruption to a standstill? Now, the corrupt issue, $1 billion, those service chiefs that were removed were accused of $1 billion deal on arms that never surfaced anywhere. And they all went and became ambassadors. So nations of the world will bring their searchlight on such people, and if you even brought them to them, they would have rejected them as ambassadors because of that hanging issue on their persons. And look at the issues of Benue that was discussed. These are things that cannot make you think that that administration meant well for Nigerians. I'll tell you something. I ventured into traveling to Republic of Benin. I love adventure as a journalist, and I take recordings. I know it will come useful someday. And I went into the business of buying stuffs from Cotonou and bringing them here. The borders were locked. But one thing I know is that when people buy vehicles, that you want to, I bought vehicles from Cotonou. I take it to the customs vehicle seats at Seme border and pay the duty to Nigeria and bring them home, which makes it legit business. But they closed the borders of Seme and vehicles were going to Niger. The vehicles going to the north would turn this way. The ones coming to the south would turn the other way. They closed the borders of the other way, and those ones can get to Niger. And once they are in Niger, they enter any part of Nigeria. It was not just vehicles, rice was going there. So if you get to some parts of the north, while we are buying rice at 35, 36, 37,000 a year, they still buy 17, 18,000. But if you are coming down, they can't allow you carry a bag to come down. So you can't possibly buy from the north and bring here to sell. But it's cheaper there. And suddenly, people who try to go through the bushes to get the cheaper one are smuggling within Nigeria. I mean, you're coming from the north, so it's like you're smuggling it because you have to run for customs.
Within?
Yes, within. And whereas over there, they're just... When there was cash crunch here, they were taking money to some villages in the north. So we didn't have one Nigeria being run under this administration. Don't forget, where we did not suspect, when they were going to appoint an IGP when Buhari came in, over 30 senior police officers were sacked. So that a choice person would become IG. He was the commissioner of police when Buhari was becoming president. The commissioner of police of Kano, whose people superintended the Kano election. And he became IG within 2 months of Buhari administration. So these are some of the strange things we did not talk about. He made a retired military officer the head of customs, which is a peeped career. You become comptroller general by posts and promotion. And you now brought a colonel in the Nigerian army. And so the people now, the House of Assembly members who are sincere said, okay, you are supposed to wear the uniform of comptroller general. Can you be an army officer and still wear a peeped? He did not throughout his stay there. I mean, he's still there, I guess. So these are some of the things we should look at. We are talking about corruption. This is the worst of it for Nigeria, and it's been indented for this administration. We were all here. When you talk about job creation, we thought they meant well about it, but suddenly it's been the worst. And the government was saying, look, we don't even owe you the responsibility of giving you employment. That goes to show the poverty of ideas within the running mill of the party. Because if you are deep, and sincerely speaking, if you look at the days of Awolowo, those ones did things not because they felt it should come to, but they look at the workability of issues and they go with it. That was why you had the Liberty Stadium in Ibadan and not Ikene. That was where the Cocoa House was built in Ibadan and not Ijebu, Remo. You see, because if they wanted to be selfish, they would have moved it there. The Cocoa House in Ibadan, now, still standing. The first television station in Africa came from. So the mindset of leadership drives. If you have somebody in the driver's seat, at that time when people were sentimentally saying, oh, we want Buhari, they said even if it is a NEPA bill, they don't mind, even if it doesn't have. Now we have seen the results of it. We are down as a nation. It's painful, but that's the route we took.
Yes, well, so let me come back to the ambassador now. I'll just highlight a couple of incidents. First is I was going to ask you, do you think that President Buhari lost his respect and his grip on the cabinet? And I'll draw your attention to some issues. During the Naira redesign, he gave an order, gave a statement. Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai almost immediately gave a counter statement. Within his cabinet, when the Naira redesign was going to start, the Minister of Finance said she didn't know anything about it. She read it on the pages of the newspaper. When the budget, 2023 budget went to the National Assembly, there was some padding in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Humanitarian Affairs said it came from the Finance Ministry. Finance Ministry said they don't know about it. Sadia Farouk and Zainab Ahmed going back and forth saying, but we don't know where the padding came from. Even the National Assembly also said that there were some errors in the budget and they couldn't identify where it was coming from. Do you think the president lost control of the presidency at a point?
The president lost control because he actually did not appear to monitor the people he appointed into different positions, whether they're ministers or their advisors or their cabinet members. And the president did not even, how do I say, National Assembly they were perceived as rubber stamp of Mr. President's policies. And when was it that since the past almost 8 years, when was it that we heard the National Assembly going against any policy or any budgetary request of Mr. President? Because they were perceived, and it looks like they act like rubber stamps of Mr. President. So we don't know what charm he might have worked on them. I'm saying that picture. I mean, I'm just saying that as a joke, but we don't know what charm he worked on them, that they never even questioned anything that he did. Is it because he was that good? Is it because he was that well versed in the policy, I mean the law and everything? Which law or legislation did he sign that he actually knew the details of? Maybe one or two, maybe some, but when you look at Mr. Buhari's behavior in public, he didn't seem to know some details of some of the things he signed. But the National Assembly gave him approval every time he applied for, submitted something, they were there. When was even the opposition, whether it was his party or the opposition party, which one senator or House of Rep ever stood up to criticize or say anything against against what Mr. Buhari has done? That's why I said we don't know what charm he has worked on them, why they just let everything go under him. Or is it because of age? You know, Nigerians have a penchant for what is it? Anybody that is above a certain age, they just give you everything. Yes, sir, don't do this, or come do this, and all that. Everybody will carry your telephone when you are walking in somewhere. Maybe because of age, but we're dealing with law, legislation. We're dealing with people. We're dealing with constitution. We are dealing with things that affect the average Nigerian, things that determine the life of the average Nigerian. In the United States, there's a joke that says that no American life is safe while the Congress is in session, but not in Nigeria. In Nigeria, what law do they make that makes any Nigerian to shudder and to wonder and to wish for something better? Everything is just, they pass everything, and you just wonder what and where is Mr. President in all of this. And also a regional aspect of his behavior, of his policy. Everything. There's an American book written, One Nation. America, Two Nations, One Black, One White. I paraphrase that to say Nigeria, Two Nations, One North, One South, separate and unequal. And we see things happening in the north, like has been just said, that the borders, the ease of entering Nigeria, going in and out of Nigeria. But when it's in the south, when the summer, it's a tough thing. I've never been to Seme, but I met the DPO of Seme, late DPO now. I met him just about 6 months ago, and he described how tough things were to cross or to enter at Seme border. But I understand it's not the same in the north. And people who have lived in the north also come back and say, or who have been there, but who lived in the north say they make everything easy for themselves. While NEPA will bring you an estimated bill, and if you don't pay, they disconnect. But they said in the north, at least not all of the north, but in the north, they said that a NEPA person dare not try to go and disconnect a light in anybody's house. Why must it be so? We're all Nigerians. We're all in Nigeria. We have resources that is all equally shared. Look at the infrastructure in the south. Somebody criticized the other day and said, how many expressways, how many roads have Mr. Buhari completed in the south, especially the southwest? But when you go into look at in the north, I understand all the roads there are super highways, but we are struggling in the south. We are struggling in the south. We complain in the south, but hardly do I hear anybody from the north say anything about bad roads over there. They're doing things for themselves. That's why I said two nations, separate, unequal. We are not getting what we're supposed to be getting as individuals or as citizens of Nigeria. as regions of Nigeria, we are made to just get by. Look at all the appointments Mr. Buhari makes. I just made a few the other day, and I purposely read the names. They're all northerners. Are there no southerners? Well, we thank him for appointing the woman as the AGF. He just appointed Mrs. Abe, what's the name? Yes, 5 days ago. We thank him for that. But in all the appointments, they're all northerners. Why must it be so? Are we not all one Nigeria? The Bible, but our first national anthem says, our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle honored, in this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without stain. Well, look at what happened during the EndSARS protest. You see how they painted the Nigerian flag with red because of the lives that were lost over there. Now we have a banner with a stain, and all under during the administration of this outgoing administration. So we have a lot to say. There's a lot that Mr. Buhari has achieved. When you read the thing published the other day, he has achieved a lot. But then, like I said again, the average person doesn't know those things. We know those things, we read them, we heard about them, but the average person doesn't know it. When you go to the marketplace, ask the market woman or anybody going there to shop, they will say, under Buhari, things are so bad. So, well, history is not writing his story well.
Well, so let's look at something you mentioned earlier, but from another angle now. Recently, the president took an $800 million loan from the World Bank to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. His administration has said we're not removing subsidy anymore. It's left for the incoming administration to do. What happens to that loan? But let me just give you a little bit of a rundown. And looking at Nigeria's external debt since 1999, an economist says that all the debt relief work done by President Obasanjo and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala have been undone by President Buhari. Number one, Olusegun Obasanjo between 1999 and 2006. External debt, start of tenure, $28.04 billion. External debt, end of tenure, $2.17 billion. Yaradua between 2007 and 2010, $2.11 billion. End of tenure, $2.58 billion. Good luck, Jonathan, between 2010 and 2015, $2.00 billion. End of tenure, $7.35 billion. Muhammad Buhari, 2015 to 2023, start of tenure, that's external debt, $7.35 billion. As at December 2022, end of tenure, $41.69 billion, from $7.35 to $41 billion.
That's external debt. Now, in 2022, 96% of the national income, the revenue of Nigeria, was used in servicing debt. That's not even part of the external debt. The loans they took that they wanted to improve things in Nigeria. Now, I'll now tell you where this is coming from. Most of the things Nigeria does or did under this administration were very corrupt. The ECOWAS countries wanted to do the rail project and discovered the cost Nigeria used as template for its own projects, rail projects, that went as far as Maradi in Niger Republic. It was humongous, strange. So they said they could not use Nigeria's template. And all of these things happen. We start talking about, we see infrastructure. Infrastructure that is corrupt from the start. Infrastructure that was not well developed. And I begin to wonder where we are going on all of that. Now, the external debt issue is painful because for months, the Buhari administration said they were looking for eggheads that will work with that administration. For all I knew, whatever it's worth, I never knew Okonjo-Iweala to have been a party person before her appointment. She was actually an international figure, financial expert and all. But the administration looked for her and brought her in. Obi's Equisili of this world, the Adesina of this world, that's why they could find their foot in other places internationally. AFDB under Adesina has repositioned that place. These were people sat in cabinets in Nigeria. But I tell you, how many of Buhari's ministers today can hold their head high, because ordinarily if you see the government you are part of doing some things terribly wrong, as responsible, capacity-driven individuals with integrity, you are supposed to say, look, if this is the road we are passing through, I want out. But not one single person. And so it's painful. To me, at some point, I said, look, Nigeria is strengthening Niger. Nigeria is having under Buhari. And at some point, I said, is this administration trying to borrow Nigeria into extinction? So that those of you say, oh, we're agitating, we want to go, that by the time you even say you are doing anything, it's off. There's nothing to wait for. Nigeria is hugely indebted. Hugely indebted as we speak. It can't be easier. And unfortunately, indebtedness with foreign nations is dangerous. Agreement signed with China. We have heard that China is taking over infrastructures in some countries to get back their money. Nigeria has not managed it well. Rail lines are supposed to cushion things for the people, but you discover you can get a vehicle from Ojota to Ibadan for 500. But if you want to take the rail from, you have to go to the train station, which must be a distance to where you are. And when you get to Ibadan, it drops you at Monia, far inside Monia. So the cost of transportation to get to wherever you are going, even in Ibadan, is more than what you pay at Ojota to get to Challenge.
Exactly.
So where is the wisdom? But because the project was overinflated, and you have to justify that in the revenue you want to collect, so that you say you want to use that to repay the loan. It's not working. The economics of this administration has failed totally, such that it has created a great problem for the incoming administration. That's the basic fact.
All right. So just before we go, let me ask the ambassador. You were talking about speaking to market women and them saying that things have gone up. When Buhari came to power on May 29, 2015, inflation was single digits, 9%. Yeah. Now we're at 22%. Yeah. I mean, what's your take on that?
22% in spite of the free money, or what's the money that is being given them, 5,000 or 10,000 every month, and refundable 10,000, of course, in spite of all the social investment programs that was introduced and that implemented and made available but not to everybody. So the inflation will continue to eat into whatever is put out there to help the people. Inflation will eat it up. Like I said earlier on, a cup of rice used to be a certain amount, but now it's about 5 times more, and the average person is crying because they can't afford it. So whatever social investment program this administration has introduced or implemented, inflation is eating it up. It looks like somebody is waiting out there, like waiting to collect whatever the government puts out. And so the average man is suffering. The market women, they can't even sell their product. They buy product that is rotting in on their shelf because people don't have the money to buy it. And people, I mean, those of them, because I interact in the grassroots a lot, those of them who sell at credit. The people who buy on credit are unable to pay them on time, and so they are unable. You can give them 10,000 a month. What will 10,000 a month buy for somebody who is struggling? And so you can do all these things, but unless the government comes from above and does something to help their situation, they will not speak well of this administration. We hope that the incoming administration will be able to correct some of these anomalies. When I traveled out of Nigeria in 1977, a dollar was 1 naira was 75 cents. But now 1 naira is now 750. Actually, yes, 750. $1 is now 750 naira. So we can't even buy imported things because they're charging by the dollar. I wanted to bring a car into Nigeria, call my man who does my clearing, and he said they charge now based on the dollar exchange rate. I said the official or the non-official. He said the non-official, the black market rate. So what that means, the car I want to bring in, the cost, the price, the money I will pay for it, I mean, to clear it in Nigeria is greater than almost twice what I pay for it in the United States. How would I write Mr. Buhari well when these things are going on every day and it's getting worse? It's not getting better.
Well, we hope that things will get better. But before we
are talking about these things in America, like Ambassador said, the moment for economic indices to tally internationally, they make some changes that would burden the people. But immediately America changes the minimum wage. It was $5, it got to $13 per hour. You understand? As economic policy changes, in the lifetime of Buhari administration, minimum wage was 30,000 naira. Throughout, it never changed. When all of this was happening, fuel price per liter went up like twice. Dollar from like 150, 180 to 750. And all of these things percolate into what determines the price of products, of goods and services. Now I tell you, what runs the economy anywhere in the world is the money that lines the purse of people, and that is income. Those who earn income, you cannot buy a bag of rice if you earn 30,000 a month. So the best you can do is to go buy 2 bowls from that woman, and that woman that sold you 2 bowls can buy pepper from another. And that's what circulates. So when that is not flowing, the money in the vaults are there. Some people can just make a transfer of 1 billion. That is not what is running the economy around. It is money that passes from one hand to the other, and that is in short supply. And the minimum wage of Nigerians has still become a mirage, because before it gets to you, it's gone. And nobody's talking about that. So definitely the government has not done well, because it has not looked at the lives of individuals, and individuals are determining factors of what goes on in society.
All right, so just before we go on a scorecard of 1 to 10, I'll take you first. What would you score the Buhari administration, 1 to 10?
I'll be modest. I'll score 3.
3 over 10. Ambassador, what would you score?
I will rate him 7.
7. Oh, okay.
Yes,
well, that's a contrast.
Because of infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so thank you very much, gentlemen. But before I let you go, today something is happening in Dangote refinery being inaugurated or commissioned. What do you make of that? Will it ease our petrol woes?
No, it won't.
Okay, that's
what is that?
Dangote refinery that's been commissioned.
What's
today.
happening in Lagos right now?
Yes,
it's a good thing, and we welcome it. But will it make the price of gasoline go down?
That's the question.
Just like we see in
it's going to 750.
Okay, it's going to 750. All right, thank you so much, Comrade Larry Fadausi is the Southwest Coordinator for Big Tent and the Public Affairs Analyst, Osun State Coordinator for Nigeria Life Matters. Thank you so much.
Nigeria Lives should matter.
Of course, they should matter. And Ambassador Adewale Adewumi, Pastor Mount Olive's Ministry, New Selma Branch. Am I pronouncing that properly? New
Smyrna
Branch.
New Smyrna Beach,
Florida. Journalist and former publisher, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, that's the interview segment of the show. I'll be back to tell you what's trending. The United Kingdom is in the news as regards the ban on foreign students bringing their families over. And congratulations to Manchester City. I feel for Femi Olanikweku and Arsenal fans who have lost the Premier League to Manchester City again. Well, I'll see you after the break.
Ahmadu Bello, a Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910